PC have got a lot of games, too many games really, and every so often I like to go on there and just have a look and see what I can see. And I realised I've never played Project Zomboid, and I thought I'd give it a go. Now basically, Project Zomboid is a survival horror game. It's literally all about gathering supplies and just surviving for as long as you can. The graphics look a little bit underwhelming, but it's not really about the graphics, it's about the gameplay. Project Zomboid is an early release game, which means it's been out for a while, but they bring the game out on PC and they just add bits to it depending on what feedback they get from people who play the game. So it's not quite finished, but it sort of is. And they add little bits to it and they sort of change the gameplay depending on what people like and what people don't like. Now at the start you can choose your character. You can be anyone, a fireman, a policeman, whatever. You can choose your haircut, your hair colour, your outfit, everything. I've chosen to be a policeman and I start off in this little building. It's always random. You always start in different places. And you just interact with objects and there's so much to do. You can watch telly or you can sit down, do whatever you want to do. Best thing to do though in any survival situation is find food, water and shelter and a weapon. And you're going to need a weapon because there are zombies fucking everywhere. A lot of people play this game and they just don't know what to do because it is overwhelming at the start because you are in a survival situation, and in any survival situation people just don't know what to do. I mean, what do? They don't know what to do. They run around like chickens with their heads cut off, and this game could be a little bit overwhelming at the start, but my advice is just settle down, try and find food, get yourself a weapon as soon as possible, whether it be a bread knife, like I'm going to find a fucking bread knife in a minute, but it's better than nothing, right? And get yourself supplies and food, everything you need to eat, and you've got to look after yourself in this game, because if you don't, you'll get killed quickly. And as you can see here, parts of the building are all black. That's because you have to be directly looking at stuff to see it. This means that if you're not looking at something, you can't see it. So you can be blindsided by zombies. Parts of the house you can't see are all dark. You have to walk into rooms to see what you can see. And that's pretty spooky because you never know where the zombies are, but you can hear them. But they can break in through windows and through doors. And if they hear you inside a building, if you make too much noise, they will come running. And you can get overwhelmed very quickly on this game. The gameplay is very meticulous. I mean, at one point I broke a window with my arm so I could get through this window into this house because I wanted to break in and nick everything like a burglar. So I broke in, but then my arm started bleeding and eventually I realised I was bleeding to death. My health was getting lower and lower and lower. I had to find a bandage to bandage up my arm, otherwise I was going to die, all through breaking a window. But I love that. I love that attention to detail. You can't do anything in this game and get away with it. If you're carrying too many objects, you can't even run properly. You sort of just waddle along and the zombies start chasing you and you can barely outrun them. So you've got to be careful how much you carry. You've got to be careful about breaking through windows without using a weapon. If you use your hand, you'll end up cutting yourself. And of course, you've got to remember to eat and drink regularly. But also in this game, once you run out of food, you can read books and you can learn to do things like hunting and fishing, and you know, it's really, the possibilities are endless. After a while, you realise the graphics may not look that impressive, but the gameplay is. It's very in-depth. I can even get food, put it on the cooker and actually cook stuff. So you can actually cook food and watch TV and read books and, you know, waste time. You know, you can do things in this game that will help you learn. I mean, reading books is the best way to learn, but it takes forever. So you will find time just to sit down and read a book just to learn more about carpentry so you can build stuff with your hands. But reading books is the best way to increase your skills. And as your skills increase, you'll be able to do things like fish, you'll be able to build stuff, you'll be able to craft stuff, and it makes the game even better than it is. So once you've taken all the resources in a house, you want to move on to another house and try and find other stuff. But going outside is treacherous because that's where the walkers are. And you know these walking dead sacks of shit are out there somewhere, but you don't know where. So you've got to be careful and you better be armed. I started off this level with a bread knife, which wasn't the most effective weapon, but you can find things like guns and stuff like that. But finding weapons is sort of hit and miss. You might find, you know, a really good weapon at the start on one level, but it's always randomly generated levels. So what you find and what you get is just down to pure luck, really. Oh look, there's a little barbecue. Cool. I mean, this game's got everything, even barbecues. Now, a lot of buildings are locked, but occasionally you'll find a door that's not locked and you can just walk in, which is great. But be careful, because there may be someone inside the house, like a zombie. So basically, it's back to looting. You're basically stealing everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, everyone's dead, so what? There's nothing wrong with stealing from the dead, is there? Now, at this point, I took some time and started trying to cook some spaghetti. I was actually trying to heat some spaghetti on the oven. So what I'm doing here is just preparing things and turning on the oven, because you can interact with objects like that, which is really cool. But it takes a while for food to cook. I mean, things take time. Reading, cooking, it takes time. Also, I didn't realise, but there was a fucking zombie in one of these rooms here, which I could hear him, but I didn't know he was there. I could just hear him, and I had no idea where it was coming from. And that door at the back, he's behind that fucking door, and I didn't even know he was there. So I'm walking around hearing zombies, wondering where they are. He's actually behind that locked door. It's probably the person who owned the house. They're probably dead, and they've come back from the dead, and now they're locked downstairs in the basement. But I'm preoccupied trying to cook fucking spaghetti. But that's what I love about this game. You can do stuff like that. Oh, look, I got me bread knife. I found me bread knife, which I thought would be a decent weapon. It's quite easy to use the weapons. You just, basically... I mean, this is another good thing about this game. It's on PC, but you can use a controller. And it works pretty well, and all you have to do is just stand and just stab people with the bread knife, so it's quite effective. Unfortunately, the bread knife is a pretty shit weapon, unfortunately. I mean, I started stabbing some zombies in a minute, and it took me forever to kill them. Now I'm going to skip forward a bit, because I spent ages here fucking around with spaghetti, and that far too long, to be honest. You can't afford to spend this long in an apocalypse messing about with spaghetti. So here we are. We're going outside and having... Oh, shit. Yes, there it is. That's the great thing about being blindsided. You just don't see it coming. As you can see, the fighting is pretty good. You can push them, you can stab them, but look, they're still coming. They're still coming after me. I think I killed that zombie by stabbing him in the bollocks, which is pretty unique. Yes, as you can see, the bread knife is not a very effective weapon. Not only did it take me like 10 years to kill those two zombies, but the bread knife broke as well. So now the bread knife is pretty much fucking useless. But let's be honest, it was pretty fucking useless in the first place, right? Fortunately, you can just chuck stuff away here. I'm going to put the bread knife on the floor. And for some weird reason, I can actually move the bread knife despite being nowhere near it, which is a bit strange. Sometimes the controls using a controller on a PC, they can get a bit fiddly sometimes. You end up, trying to work out which button does what. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty good, I have to say. Now, at this point, I realised there was some banging coming from somewhere, and I had no idea where it was coming from. And then I realised it was coming from that door. As you look at the back, the door's sort of like bulging in and out. There's actually, a walker down there. So I had no idea about that. And here I am back trying to work out how to cook my fucking spaghetti again, which is something that I really did become too preoccupied with whilst playing this game. But that's one of the brilliant things about this game. It's not all about killing zombies and that. You can explore, you can interact with objects, you can take your time sometimes to explore and look for stuff. And it's very important, because some of the objects you find later on, you can use them and craft and put them together to make other things, and it becomes a really interesting game. In fact, I was finding Project Zomboid a very intriguing game to play. It was interesting. It wasn't boring, I was having fun, exploring the world, looking out for zombies. And you think to yourself, this is a really good game. It looks basic, but it's got a lot going for it. In fact, one of the great things about this game is you can get into cars and you can drive, which is really cool. In fact, I tried that once. Unfortunately, I got in a car, but I realised I didn't have any fucking car keys, and the car alarm started going off, and next thing you know, the car was surrounded by about 100 fucking zombies, and I was fucked. It was a pretty dumb move. I basically trapped myself instantly whilst trying to, steal a car. One thing I love about this game is it's just so in depth. You can check your temperature, how hot, how cold you are. You can check if you're bleeding, where you're injured to. You can check where the blood's coming from. You can apply a bandage to that specific part of the body. It's got so much going for it. It's got real attention to detail. Plus, there's so many objects you can find. Some of them are just totally useless, but other things can be, crafted together. And if you learn by reading books, you can really experiment and build some pretty cool stuff. As well as that, there's guns in the game. But, I haven't found one yet. I'm just pissing about with bread knives. Even though this is an early release game, I'm quite happy to give it 89 out of 100 because it's a brilliant game. It's very enjoyable, and all you do is basically try and survive. But that is incredibly difficult in this game. Now, at this point, I don't have a weapon. This door's locked as well, which, a lot of them are. Now, you can break in, and I'm about to make a ridiculous mistake by trying to break in using my arm, which will shatter the glass, but also cause a massive cut on my arm, which will eventually cause me to start bleeding to death. So that's a bit of a rookie mistake, isn't it? So never put your arm through a plate glass window. Now, if you look to the box on the left, I have got a lot of stuff. This is all the stuff I'm carrying, and it is so ridiculously heavy. I can't even run at this point because I've got so much shit. I've got energy bars, I've got books on farming so I can learn how to grow some seeds later in the game or whatever. And, I've got everything. Unfortunately, I forgot you shouldn't carry too much because if you do, you can't even run. And if you see the blood, look at the blood at the bottom of my leg there. That's because I'm bleeding to death because of that cut on my arm. But I found a bandage, so I'm about to apply that bandage now to my arm. Unfortunately, I've also got a cut on my hand, which carries on bleeding, which doesn't help. So, we've seen a bit of gameplay, and my verdict on this game is it's a brilliant game. I really enjoyed playing it, and there's so much to do. And you just think, how much more is there to this game? Because the more there is, the better I like it. But now I'm about to make another rookie mistake. Notice my incredibly slow getaway. I'm not much faster than a zombie. That's because I'm carrying too much shit. I tried to shut the door here, but he came through it. I haven't got enough. I can't run because I'm carrying too many fucking chocolate bars and crap like that. I'm also still bleeding to death from that cut on my hand, so things aren't going well. This is day one and things are going pretty badly. But I just wanted to show you a taste of this game, and unfortunately it's not on console. A lot of people will say, when's it coming out on console? Well, it depends how well the game does. The more the game sells, the more likely they will port it to console, and I don't see any problem with doing that, because it plays really well with a controller. I will say this though, the game isn't quite finished. It's one of those early release games, a bit like Subnautica. That was an early release game, and eventually that was released on console. So, who knows? But anyway, that was just 15 minutes, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do, please subscribe, and I'll make more videos, and hopefully I'll become really rich and buy a sports car. Hooray!